Wonderful. We will begin now. Adam, if you'd like to take it away.
I will, thank you, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to this webinar intended to give further information to candidates, potential candidates for the internship at the University of Melbourne for 2025 who have chosen to be in the government pool for the employment process. So a welcome to our colleagues from the Department of Education, Hamid Farid, Rita Mamoni and Kelsey Babino. It's Hamid who will be addressing us largely in this seminar. So if we just first of all acknowledge that we're on the lands of the Wurundjeri people, where this webinar is being broadcast from, and to acknowledge in our schools and in our university the importance of First Nations knowledges in guiding a uniquely Australian perspective on life and the value of Indigenous knowledges to the Academy. And we recommit ourselves this day once again to a reconciled Australia. Thanks, Rita. My name is Dr. Adam Taylor. I am the coordinator of the Master of Secondary Teaching internship at the University of Melbourne. I'm a former school principal, having been a principal in New South Wales and Victoria, and have worked nationally in the non-government sector as well. I've worked extensively with Rita, Kelsey, and others, including Hamid, over the course of the last couple of years on this program. We've got an excellent product, and without further ado, I'll introduce you to Hamid Movarid, who will take you through what the process for employment in government schools as an intern 2025 looks like and the things that you need to know. And thank you, Hamid.
Thank you very much, Adam, and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight. My name is Hamid Morvarid, and I am joined by my colleagues Rita Mamoni and Kelsey Babini. Kelsey is our program manager, and we are the senior project officers in the pre-service teacher projects and initiatives team within the Department of Education. Our roles are to work closely with University of Melbourne in partnership to implement employment-based teaching degrees, such as the one you have all enrolled in. I know that Adam has done the acknowledgement, but I also would like to start the presentation today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands in which we join and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge their continued care and ongoing connection to the land and waters. I extend that respect to any First Nations people present today. So we just start today with a bit of housekeeping. This session will be recorded and is going to be shared with you for your reference. And also, if I can ask everyone to use the Q&A function that is provided for any question you might have. So what are we going to cover today? We'll give you a little insight as how this partnership works and the part we all play in your journey. We will touch on the partnership between the department and University of Melbourne, the financial support available to you, and the matching process for your paraprofessional employment component of the program. So what do we mean when we say the Department of Education has partnered with University of Melbourne? As a part of Victoria's economic and social recovery from the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic, the Department of Education, known as the department from now on, identified a growing shortage of secondary school teachers. The department sought funding by creating jobs in education through innovative and accelerated pathway to teaching, and this was to fast-track the supply of teachers into secondary schools. The Teach Today and Teach Tomorrow program, known as TTTT, works with a series of university providers to offer Victorian government secondary and special school with a valuable opportunity to address their short-term needs, with also investing in their future workforce. Each host school is required to support all pre-service teachers during their employment term and provide them with a school-based mentor. Let's look at the financial support that is available to each candidate in the PT/TT program. Pre-service teachers will receive a department-funded scholarship payment of $2,400 to support them during their intensive study period. These payments are taxable and AYG will be withheld from this payment. And also, this is a one-off lump sum payment. Any candidates identifying as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander will receive an additional department-funded scholarship paid at the same time as the initial department payment. Also, a relocation allowance is available to candidates who relocate to a regional or rural area of Victoria for their paraprofessional employment. So if you decide that you would like to relocate to a regional or rural area, and we can find you a matching school, you will be asked to provide a proof for your relocation. And the eligibility criteria is that you relocate more than 100 kilometers from your current location. And then you will be paid a $2,000 lump sum after you're commencing your employment. So how will you be matched with a school for employment? Our partners at the University of Melbourne have already sent you a guide that provides you a step-by-step instruction to complete a job opportunity profile on our central matching system, which is known as CMS. And the department use your profile to match you to a school for employment. These matches are formed based on the information that you have provided, such as the location, geographical preferences, subject methods, and any pre-existing relationships you might have with the school. This is why we require your job opportunity profile to be completed and filled in correctly. To provide clarity on this important information, we will go to the next slide. Yep, thank you. The most important part of this is the subject and duties, and these must be your approved methods from University of Melbourne. And as much details you can put in these, because our system works mainly on subjects in terms of the job opportunities that the school has raised and what subject you are able to teach as well. And that's how the central matching system works. The other important part is the location preferences. And as you can see, there is a map there. And if you click on that map, it gives you the local government area. If you select the correct LGA, the local government area, this is going to be the basis of your match. We suggest using LGA instead of using region, as it's a vast area and may not work best with your preferred area. And also, I would suggest choosing more than only one LGA to get a better opportunity in regards to your employment matches. As you can see on this slide, there is a part that we have circled down there. It is vital that you inform the department in your job opportunity profile of any existing school relationships you have or would like to be promoted for employment. And the CMS has this option, that circled area down there, that you can say if you have worked in a school as an ES or a casual staff or any other positions that you might have worked with that school. We will now talk through the interview process. If a school is interested in hosting you for employment, we provide them with your profile information and contact details. They will contact you for a meet and greet or a formal interview, pending on school's preference. And then it is your responsibility that during this process, you answer your phone and keep an eye on your university as well as your private email inbox during this time, maybe just a couple of times a day. You may be required to attend multiple interviews to increase your prospects of gaining success of employment. And a handy tip is please review your voicemails and make sure it is professional and how you would like to be presented at your first impression. Also, there are a few tips on the screen. Do your research about the school, check their school website as well as the departments. Present yourself as a professional and be engaged. Make sure you're listening and responding to questions thoroughly. And then once you're matched with a school, if a school would like to employ you, these are the steps that will occur. The school will offer you a verbal offer of employment, and you will need to accept or decline within 48 hours because they are under a lot of pressure during this period. And we appreciate if you can get back to them as quickly as you can. And if you cannot reach the same contact via phone, then please reach out via email. The school will notify us then as the department of the appointment and your response. Then we will prepare employment contracts and send that to the school for signing in the first instance, and then to you for your signature. Once the contract is fully signed, the department forward this to the University of Melbourne, and then they can submit the permission to teach internship, and they begin the registration process. This slide provides information on. Sorry, did we miss the salary and condition? This is not the most up-to-date
Okay.
one.
It's just there.
Oh, yeah. Salary and employment conditions if you are successful in a paraprofessional position at the school. So you will be contracted to 12 to 24 months of employment during the program as a paraprofessional under permission to teach internship. And the employment is a 0.8 FTE, being 0.6 of teaching load, plus a 0.2 paid study leaves. And the salary of a 0.8 FTE begins at 50,522. Some of the changes of the condition of employment for teaching staff in the Victoria Government School include a reduction in face-to-face teaching hours to give teachers more time to prepare lessons, plan and mark assessments. The department has increased the parental adoption leave period to 16 weeks and quadrupled partner leave from 1 week to 4 weeks of paid leave. And also superannuation contribution will now continue to be paid for the first 12 months of unpaid parental leave. And that brings us to an end of the presentation. So thank you very much, everyone. And back to you, Adam.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hamed. Adam, do you have anything you would like to add before
I
I
do.
go
I
to the
do
Q&A?
I do. Thank you. If you could just enable screen sharing for me, Freya, and I'll just add a little bit of just 2 little pieces of detail for candidates that they might want to consider.
Wonderful. 1 second. I'm just waiting for my Zoom to respond. It seems to be having a slight.
I can begin to speak to that. So can I just remind everybody that the employment period for the 2025 cohort has in fact now commenced, and that will run exclusively in the pool in which you are, the government school pool, until the 28th of October. So after that time, all candidates will be considered in the same pool. So it is imperative that you act with some promptness and a sense of purpose, because at the end of when we get to the 28th of October, your opportunities will be more limited than they are at the beginning of the process, and I think that you can work out why that is. As you know, and as Hamed's made very clear, the Department of Education will be facilitating your employment process for that period. The second thing that I wanted to add for you is that, and this is on the university side, an unconditional offer into the course will be issued to you after you have been engaged with an employer. That is a principal who has the delegated responsibility to employ you on behalf of the department. We'll be informed about that. That'll come to our office, and then you will get an unconditional offer into the course. You need to accept that offer and enroll in your subject. So that's important for you to note now, so that while things are happening at the employment end, you need to also make sure that things are rolling along at the university end. Accept the offer that will be issued to you once you have a job, and then enroll in your subjects. Working with children checks. Teachers don't require a working with children check because they're covered under VIT. But our advice to you is that working with children check at volunteer level as a minimum is required by you and can be applied for now. There's no cost for a volunteer working with children check, and so that's something that you can get onto straight away. There will be a permission to teach session for you with the VIT on the 28th of October, 6 p.m. So you might mark that one in your diaries now, noting that an invitation and further information will be sent to you about that in October. But that date again, a permission to teach application session with the VIT, 28th of October, 6 p.m. That's extremely important because you cannot start teaching in the classroom as an intern without your permission to teach internship, which is the special category of PTT which comes with this course. Hamed, the last couple of things I wanted to add was that the course orientation day is on the 2nd of December for those who are working, and we have asked schools that they might consider inviting you as candidates to their school for the 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th, any one or combination of those days. So different schools have different needs, but we have asked schools to let them know that you will be available. So if you've got work arrangements in your current circumstances, you need to plan around that week because that will be a busy week when you are engaging both with the university and with your future employer. So that brings me to a close on those things, Freya, and we're ready to go to questions and answers at this point.
Of course. So we'll go to Q&A now. So one that did come up a little bit was the likelihood of receiving interviews and receiving an offer if you only choose between 2 to 3 LGAs, and how that would work.
Over to you, Hamed, I think, for that one.
Thanks, Adam. Sorry, it just took me a while to find the unmute button. Yeah, so basically, as I mentioned before, it really depends on what area in Victoria that is and what jobs has been raised by the school. So the more LGAs you select as your preferred location, the higher the chance would be for you to match. And also based on the subject methods that they're available or raised in those jobs.
So it would be fair to say, Hamed, that at this point, there's not great clarity on what that need is that will emerge over the course of the employment period.
Correct. So it's based on the school needs and whatever is actually going to be raised in the system. Reid, do you have anything else to this?
Reed's just dropped off. Her power's actually dropped
Okay,
out.
can you hear me?
No, that's
I have
okay.
a few
I'm
more
happy to jump
questions
in, Freya.
Of course, of course. I've got a few more questions that are
Just before
coming
you go on,
through.
then,
So,
just before you go
um,
on, before
of
you go
course.
on, Freya, Kelsey, I think you wanted to add to Hamid's comments.
Yeah,
So
sure. Selecting 2 or 3 LGAs will definitely benefit your chances of, getting an interview at a school, because we do have multiple schools within one LGA. So I think if you are open to selecting 2 or 3, it will definitely increase your chances to securing an interview.
Perfect. I think that's very, very helpful. Another question we have, this one's generally from students who are transferring from the Master of Teaching Secondary into our 12-month MTSI. And that is, if a student has done a placement at a school, do they have to list that down as a previous relationship?
That would definitely help. And
Perfect.
our preference is normally to go to those schools as a priority if they have worked, and then engage with them to see what's the likelihood of them um, wanting to proceed with the employment phase as well. So it's definitely important for you to mention that as a existing relationship.
Perfect. Thank you so, so much. The other question we have had a little bit, and that is around that relocation payment. So the payment that's given if someone goes more than 100 kilometers away from their home. How would someone register that they've done that? Is there a process they need to follow?
Kelsey, I might hand it over to you.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
There, in the profile system, where you'll go and register all of your information, there is a tick box there that says, "Are you open to relocating?" It is expected that you will tick that box. If you have any preferences in mind, there will also be options there for you to select.
Perfect. Thank you so, so much. The next one is just around things such as how the internship will work at the start. Will there be a bit of shadowing at the start, or will it be that they're mostly teaching and someone's maybe watching them? Do you want to talk a bit about that process in those first couple of weeks?
I'm
let me
happy.
make some preliminary comments and then Kelsey add to those. From the university's perspective, interns under the school university partnership agreement are entitled to teach their own classes from day one. What is critical to the success of interns is a high quality mentor relationship. So I can't it would be impossible for me to overemphasize how important that is for the intern to invest in that mentor relationship, for the intern to do what they can to insist that they have a mentor who's well suited to them, and to work closely with that mentor on a daily basis. Mentors under the school university partnership agreement have 90 minutes of timetabled workload time to attend to their mentee, their intern. Now, not all of that time will be face to face because there's administrative work to do. There's observation write-ups to be written, etc. But you have a reasonable expectation of time from your mentor. Now, the mentor is the person who's on the ground. There's also the university clinical specialist. It's the intention of the university, although it cannot always be achieved, but certainly the intention that the clinical specialist, the person who is the university contact who comes into your school, will follow you throughout the course of your degree. And they're an incredibly important contact who can guide you in your progress. Kelsey, you might want to add to those comments.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I think just to ease some of the anxieties, because it is nerve-wracking being in a classroom on day one. The schools that take on interns like programs like this do understand that you are an early career teacher. They know that you are not the expert, and that you will need the support and the mentorship from everybody at the school. So, like Adam said, it is extremely important that the school does supply you with an appropriately skilled mentor. But other than that, it's very important for you to also network within your school. lean on the experts around you, especially if you specialize in, a subject like science. You will have your science teachers that you can lean on, the people that you can talk to, ask questions, collaborate, and network. It is extremely important that you do that at the school level, and they are very normal to do that. They are so equipped to supporting pre-service teachers like this.
No, perfect. Kelsey, that's very, very helpful. Thank you for that one. Another one we have a question about, and this has come up in a few questions, is particularly around the likelihood of getting a few interviews, when a student, at what stage would a student be taken out of the process? And obviously, once they get an offer from a school and they've agreed to the internship, does that mean no other schools can see them? How that sort of process works?
Correct. That's a really good question. So what will happen is we will advise a school of what the process is. If a school has interviewed you, and we will encourage them to make a verbal offer. If you decide to accept that verbal offer, the school is expected to let us know. We will confirm with you to make sure that you have accepted the offer. We will expect that in writing as well from you. Once that is in place, we will then start the formal arrangements. We will then remove you from the system so that no more schools can contact you, and that we will start the process of formal agreements.
And that's a extremely important point for everybody to note here, is that we're not waiting for formal contracts to be signed. That comes later, but it's verbal agreement then supported by just an email is sufficient from the candidate, then gives us high confidence that we have a match, and that the department communicates that to the university, and that's when the process begins of you being offered an unconditional offer into the course, and you can start enrolling. You will then get that offer of the unconditional enrollment. You'll accept it and start enrolling in your courses. So that's a really important part of the process, and it doesn't need a contract. It does need a verbal contract supported by your further evidence of that in an email track. Thank you, Kelsey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And another question that is particularly around things such as the 300 character section on the job profile, how strict that is, and if you have any tips or tricks for a CV or a cover letter that's going to stand out.
We don't necessarily have tips and tricks on a CV or a cover letter, only because everybody's preference is different. I know what I would prefer to read on a resume is definitely different to what a principal would prefer. So I think just, do what feels natural to you in terms of your application. When it comes to the character limit of the questions that we do ask, we do keep that strict on purpose, because we don't want schools to get lost in the detail. Keep it short, sharp, and succinct. Put as much detail as you can in terms of actually answering the question, and try not to fill in the space if you can't fill in the space. So keep the information in there, what's most important, what you want the school to know about you, that those questions are really just to help the school get some kind of first impression picture about you.
And from a former principal's perspective, a former employer, could I say that every school has a public profile on its website. Do your homework, understand the context of the school which you seek employment in, and make it clear succinctly in your response to the questions asked why it's that particular school which you feel suits your particular dispositions as a future teacher, because that's the something extra that you can have, and why you prefer that kind of school. Some people want to work in high needs schools. Some people prefer to work in rural schools. Some people prefer to work with in schools which are academically oriented with high achieving students. Each of those schools has its stressors, but they're just different stressors. All schools have their stresses and their challenges and their rewards. What's right for you, and that differs from candidate to candidate. Be clear about what you have to offer, and succinctly say why this school is the school that you want to go to, you're not just applying to any school. Let them know that you know their school a little bit because you've done your homework.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Another question that's come up is particularly around a student doing 0.8 FTE. How is that different to 0.6? Is it just the same as 0.6 spread over 4 days, or are you working more at a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So we have a standard time fraction, which is a 0.6 workload, which means you will only be given the workload of 3 days a week, plus 0.2 study leave. So you get paid for 1 day. It's important to note that every school is very, very different. Their structure is different. The way that they timetable classes is very different. It's also dependent on your subject specialty. So it could be that you might not be spread over, sorry, it might be that you're not in 3 full days, but you might be spread over 4 days, for example. So it could be that one day FTE is actually spread over 2 half days. So it really does depend on the school structure, their timetabling, and what your subject specialty to how that will work. But those are the types of questions you should really come prepared for during the interview and ask the school. Ask these types of questions because these are one of those questions that they do like to hear about in terms of what you're willing to learn about the school and how they run their processes, their policies and procedures.
Can I support that by saying, Kelsey, that there's been a very deliberate decision by the department for the 2025 cohort to only have 0.6 workload plus 0.2 study, that is 0.8 FTE overall for candidates as a strategy of support for interns, because internship is difficult, it's tough, but incredibly rewarding. It's, one could argue, the best way to do teacher education because you are deeply engaged in the praxis while being exposed to and deeply engaged with the theory and the opportunity to understand how they work side by side. But it is difficult to both study full-time and work full-time, to have what would be downtime for regular teachers to be have work assignments or university assignments to do, etc., to engage in it in summer intensives and the rest of it. So that is a deliberate strategy to support interns, which I think will be highly successful, Kelsey. But it doesn't mean 3 days a week of teaching, as Kelsey said. In fact, I'd be extremely surprised if that was one, achievable, but two, even wise or worthwhile for you as an intern. You need to go into this understanding that this is a full-time commitment from you. You've got the workload of 0.6 within a working week, Monday to Thursday, and you've got a commitment to study on a Friday. So it's a full-time job, is what I'm saying.
No, thank you so much for that. I mean, it's very, very helpful. Other question we have to around, as you mentioned, that I guess what we'll call it like a soft orientation or orientation that you were talking about in December. What would happen if someone couldn't attend that?
Well, we would ask that people are present for the second Monday, the 2nd of December. If it's not possible to attend that, look, that we would deal with that, Freya, on a case-by-case basis. I can't, once again, overemphasize its importance because that's all about setting you up for success. When it comes to 3, 4, 5, 6 December, they will be arrangements that will differ school by school, right across all sectors. And it will be a decision negotiated between you as employee and your employer, your principal, and her or his delegates. So that will be negotiated with you as your employee. But we have certainly made it, we will make it clear further to schools, this is what we've asked interns to make available. so that schools can then plan accordingly. And as I say, and as Kelsey's made clear, every school's different, context is different, and how they do business is slightly different. But we want you to be available in that week. So that's the long answer. Short answer to the question: be available. If you can't be, get in touch with us, and we'll work through that on a case-by-case basis.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Another couple of questions we have going out. In particular, this one is about the students, and one of you might be able to talk to this. Obviously, the students who have a conditional offer, everyone online with us now has received some information, particularly where they get to pick the employment pool they're in and then start filling out their job profile. Is there a particular place they upload that one to, or do they just complete it and you receive it back?
Good question. So you would have seen in the slides that basically that profile actually gets uploaded into our system. So you'll receive instructions if you haven't received them soon on how to access our system. But basically that is the system that will, whatever details that you put in there will be used to match you to appropriate schools. So it'll look at things like geographical preferences, your approved subject methods by the university, and any extra details that you pop in there, there will be a space for you to upload that document into that profile so that schools can view it when it's ready.
Can I make a further
Wonderful.
comment about the
Of course.
existing relationship? And please correct me, Hamed, if I've got this wrong. The question that was asked earlier about preferred relationship, let's assume that that person's done a practicum at a school. The very reason that they've chosen to go internship is because they had a very positive experience there. They love the school and the school loved them. Those internships, in our experience to date, are highly successful. So you've got to seize those relationships. And it's so important, as Hamid said, to note existing relationships so that match can be made. If you've had, and this is the less likely case, but you had a practicum experience amongst two practicum experiences in your first year, both in government schools, one you liked and another you didn't like, and you have no particular desire to go to school A because that wasn't a context which really suited the kind of teacher which you think you'll be, then you wouldn't be highlighting that as a preferred or as an existing relationship. Have I got that right, Hamid?
Absolutely right. If like you said, Adam, if that is not your preferred environment, you're more than welcome to just avoid that, and we can do the rest of the matching as normal.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I'm just seeing anything else. Another question we're getting a little bit of is particularly around if when they're completing their profile, if a student can see what schools potentially have put their hand up and have recognized that they can take on an intern, what's that possibility like?
It's a good question, but no, unfortunately, it is only viewable by us central to the department. So to give you context, schools can't see other schools either. So they can only see their own recruitment. If you would like an idea on, what schools are looking for at the moment, the recruitment site is public. You can go on there and have a look. You can get a bit of a feel for the system. You can get a bit of a feel for what schools are looking for in terms of when they actually do advertise. I want to call it a real job because it's an official advertisement. It is by a merit-based process. This process isn't an advertisement. So it's almost like schools are popping their interest, like an expression of interest in the back end of the system so that we can then view their interest, have a look at the subjects that they are interested in, and then we match students to that. The only reason why it is done like that is because these are not advertised jobs. It's not a merit-based process like Hamid mentioned earlier. It can be extremely casual. So your interview could be a walk around the school. It could be a formal sit-down meeting. Schools will do what they feel is natural to them, but it's not a merit-based process. So they won't, you know, run it like a normal job application when you are applying for an advertised position anywhere in any sector.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that one. Two big questions, not big questions, there are a few that have come through related to these two areas. Hopefully you might be able to shed some light on it. The first one is one we get a little bit, and that is the likelihood of not securing an internship, how that would work, the process behind that one, for the student does not find the right fit for them in a school.
Sure. I mean, it's a good question. It really does depend on your subject methods and your geographical preferences. If you are limiting yourself geographically, your chances will be lower. We do have instances where we cannot find matches sometimes. That's usually more to do with subject methods than it is geographical preferences. I'm sure you've seen it all over the media. There is a need for teachers. So it's not necessarily a geographical issue where we won't be able to find a position for you. It is more so to do with the subject methods. So that can affect it. So if you do have really niche subjects, I would really think about considering opening up your parameters, so your geographical parameters and your options available to give yourself some more chances.
Can I add to those comments, Kelsey? We don't really have niche subjects. The subjects are limited with the internship, and they've specifically been chosen because they're high demand subjects in all sectors. So that's the first point to note. The exclusive pool period runs until 28th of October. That is to say, you've put your name down and you've said, we put ourselves forward. I put myself forward for consideration in government schools for the exclusive purview of the government school sector until the 28th of October. Now, if you're not employed by that stage, for all of the reasons that Kelsey has iterated, we will run a non-exclusive period between the 28th of October and the 11th of November. That is to say, you will continue to have your profile open within the government sector, but if you so wish, you can also be considered in the non-government pool as well. So that's 28th of October to the 11th of November. Now, in our experience of 2024, there was one candidate not employed in that period. So the demand has increased. We have many more interns seeking positions for 2025. However, can I also say that the number of schools in all sectors seeking interns in 2024 was not fully satisfied. So I hope that gives some background.
Wonderful. Thank you both for talking about that one. I know it's a question we get a little bit just when people want to be, I guess, assured that something will come from this. So thank you both for speaking on it. Next question is particularly around the profiles that students will put their information into. Do you want to speak exactly, because there's a few questions on who exactly will be viewing those profiles and how they sort of view those ones and what they're looking for?
Yep. So us at the central department will be able to see whatever you put in your profile. How the system works is when it will preliminarily match people to positions in schools, we then trigger something to then allow a school to see your profile. So this is where we do get where we still manage the process in terms of we are extremely selective. We review everyone's profile to make sure that we have all the right information to be able to vet your details, but also so that a school has enough information. I think we've done this for a number of years now, and we know what schools are looking for. So if you do hear from us because we're asking you to go in and amend your profile, it is usually for a reason. But we will be vetting all of the profiles before we actually, tick the box, so to speak, so that schools can then start viewing profiles.
Sounds like Kelsey, your chief interview coach. That's fantastic.
Perfect. No. Um, that is fantastic. And another sort of question that is being asked in particular is, Adam, you might be best to talk to this one. It's particularly around time commitment of the classes as well as doing the internship and what happens on the school holidays.
Yeah, look, I'm very pleased to speak to this. I'm fully committed to the internship program. I think it is an opportunity to blend theory and praxis in ways that haven't been available in Australian teacher education for a very long time. Residency programs like this are common around the Western world now. They're quite prominent in the UK and in New York, for example. But please don't underestimate, and I've said this once already, but it's worth saying again, how tough they are. While they are incredibly rewarding, it's hard work. And you need to go into the process with eyes wide open. The department, as we've already said tonight, has mitigated risk for you already by making a conscious decision to limit your teaching fraction to 0.6 of a full-time teacher's load, because they think that is what can support you in balancing the needs of your study against the needs of what is essentially your workplace and workplace expectations. One of the MTSI's been around a long time at the University of Melbourne, but its new iteration only began this year. So the old course is in teach-out mode and will finish with its last cohort in 2024. So in that first year of the MTSI this year, what we had was some feedback from students about assessments. Where the course began was that the course designer said, let's give students a break in the first term holidays of their first year, because they'll need that. Bear in mind that there's no classes after the summer intensive through the first semester. But students came back to us and said, no, we don't want that. Please put assessment due dates at the end of the holiday period, because we are absolutely have our heads tied up and our efforts tied up in workforce issues, in dealing with the doing of teaching all term one. And then if you have the summer intensive last assessments due on the last day of term, you're killing me. So what we've already changed that for second semester 2024, and for both intensives in 2025, the assessments will be due at the end of the holiday break. So that's not meant to ruin your opportunity for a break, but it is meant to acknowledge what students have come back to us and said, we need the time in non-contact period with students in order to stay on top of the university work. That's a little story which I think emphasizes for you that this is a full-time commitment, and that non-student period, otherwise known as student vacations, is still a time when you will need to be heavily invested in your work, in term one break, in completing summer intensive assessments, in term two break, for many schools attending to mid-year reports for your school, in term three break, attending to assessments for your winter intensive. So that's, I think, some answer. You do get a break over Christmas, at least until January. And then in the second year, once again, the start of January, you need to be ready for that summer intensive, which essentially covers a semester of your university work. So it's not called intensive for nothing. Incredibly rewarding, but it's hardworking. You need to go into it with eyes wide open.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Adam, for speaking to that one. It's really, really great to kind of hear directly from the course coordinator about the process. I'm just sort of seeing if any other questions have come through that are of particular interest. One thing to note in particular, and this is just, I guess, a piece of advice on a student recruitment level, is that with this program, there is not an option to defer it, just because the employment is part of the condition of enrolling and receiving a full offer. So that's something to just make note of. If you're proceeding with this one, you'll start the program in the new year. So that's something just we wanted to make sure you were all aware of and conscious of, in particular as we move through this employment process. With, I guess, some final questions, in particular, you might want to speak about this one from a school perspective. When a student gets an offer of employment from a school, is there a limit of them going to the school beforehand before they commence their internship? Is it likely that they'll have a few sort of days or hours meeting other teachers there before they go into the employment? How will that sort of process work, especially with the school holidays for the students? Do you want to talk a bit more about maybe like how they'll get to know the school before
Yeah,
they
no, that's a
commence?
great question. Yes, you will get the opportunity, especially before day one. So schools usually will go back 1 to 2 weeks before school actually starts in term one. So what they will do is they will host a induction week for pre-service teachers and new graduate teachers. That varies across schools, so I can't really give you a roundabout on when that will happen, but it usually is either a week or two before term one is starting. It is your opportunity to mingle, get familiar with where the printer is, where the staff room is, all the facilities at the school, just in case, you know, schools do this a lot, so sometimes they might not tell you where everything is, so go prepared with the questions. They might not think to tell you where the bathrooms are, so definitely ask where the bathrooms are. Things like that, you will get the opportunity to definitely explore the school and meet the staff there as well before school starts.
And I'd add to that what I've said earlier to Freya, and that is that in the first week of December, Tuesday, December 3, 4, 5, 6 through to the Friday, we're asking schools or letting schools know that interns will be available should they wish to bring them in. And what we would be encouraging schools to do is to give interns every possible exposure to observe classes in the school, particularly with their mentor teacher, if that mentor teacher is at that point appointed, which is likely given the lateness in the year. So there's that as well as those January before Australia Day opportunities that Kelsey's spoken of.
No, wonderful. Thank you so much. Another thing I just wanted to make note of, and someone can jump in and correct me if I misspeak, and that is for our students who are starting this program from the beginning, doing the 2-year option, they are employed for 2 years, and the school is aware of that. Just wanted
Correct.
to
Yes. Yes.
put that one out there. So I'm just letting you all know that the schools are aware that this is how long you're studying for. This is how long you will do the internship for.
Yep. So I might just add to that, Freya, when you go to
Yep.
complete your profile, there will be a drop down in that profile that asks you how long your program is for. There is a 12-month option and a 24-month option there. It is okay if you misselect it because we're going to check with Adam anyway, and we will get a list from the university to confirm who is in what program. And that's part of our vetting process before we actually progress your application to a school any further.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that one. I guess in the same vein, is there a particular contact any students on this webinar or who are watching this webinar later the best place they can get any particular questions answered. If anyone wants to say where they could be, Adam, feel free to speak up, or Kelsey, please let me know and I can put it in the Q&A
Yeah.
for the students.
No, definitely. Freya, we can send through our mailbox, and feel free to share that with anybody if they have any employment questions. But just to be clear, any questions about the course definitely need to be directed at Adam.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
thanks. And questions which are technical questions about the process should be directed to, and let me put the address in the chat.
Of course, I'll share that one on the Q&A. That's
Thank
totally
you.
fine. And I'll
Thanks.
also
Thanks,
send out
Freya.
an email as well,
Yes.
likely tomorrow morning, for anyone watching now, which will have key contacts as well. So feel free
Yeah, and
to
I'm happy
send
to
me
take
anything.
taking queries about the academic content and subjects, etc. And people can find me at the uni domain, adam.taylor@.
And also,
Perfect.
if I may add, Freya, on that step-by-step guideline that we have shared with University of Melbourne, and it's going to be shared with the students, there is the Teach Today, Teach Tomorrow mail inbox that
Oh,
they can all
perfect.
contact us as well. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So yes,
All right.
for anyone watching this live or watching the recording, there is a contact email for the Department of Education if you have any questions in regards to that process. I'll also include the best email if you have any questions about the course as well. So that's completely fine. I think this is a good place to finish this
Thanks,
webinar. We've
Freya. And
just hit 7 o'clock.
Can I finish on behalf of the university by thanking Ahmed, Kelsey, and Rita from the Department of Education for presenting this evening and being so highly informative, and to you, Freya, for facilitating our evening. So thank you to everybody and good evening.
Thanks,
Wonderful.
everybody.
Thank you,
Good night.
everyone. Bye.